How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Southern Precision Outdoors. As you all know, every single month we do a giveaway, whether it be suppressors, tripods, hunting gear, you name it, we're going to give it away. So for the month of June, we're going to spin the wheel of names. This is for everybody that commented and liked our videos for the entire month of June. So we're going to spin the wheel of names and see who the lucky winner is. All right, guys, there you have it, ZRX11. We're gonna try to tag you down below. Whoever you are, if you see this, make sure to contact us so we can get your can shipped out to your local SOT and get your free can on the way. Appreciate everybody. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Southern Precision Outdoors. In today's video, we're going to be answering a question that just about everyone has when shopping for a thermal. Should I go with a 256, a 384, or a 640? Now, you can save money, get a 256, spend a little bit more, get a 384, or just go ahead and bite the bullet and get a 640 right off the rip. Now, we're going to take a look at several different factors when deciding this. We're going to look at detection ranges, identification ranges, some real world hunting uses, and also zoom performance for each one of these different resolutions. So when we say 256, 384, and 640, we're talking about the thermal resolution. Now, a 256 has the fewest amount of pixels that is building your image, then a 384 has a little bit more, and then a 640 has, quite a bit more. So the more pixels you have, the more detailed your image will be. Now, we're gonna start off by talking about a 256 resolution thermal. Now, a 256 is going to be your most budget-friendly option when getting into the thermal market. Now, they do their job pretty well for the weekend warrior that's occasionally hunting, or if you're hunting in tight terrain or over feeders, or you're just hunting in general that's, 100, 125, 150 yards. Now, a 256 will serve most people just fine. Where you start seeing limitations with a 256 is when you're starting to increase your range out past about 150 yards. Now, you'll notice in this video here that when you start increasing your zoom performance on a 256 really starts to decrease. The more you zoom in, you're losing tons of image quality. So my personal opinion, if you're stretching out past that 150 yard zone, I would upgrade to a 384 just so you can maintain a higher identification range. Now, with a 256, for this video, we did AGM Rattlers. We had the V2 19256 and then the V3 25 384 and the V3 35 640. Now, the 256 has a detection range of about 900 yards. And when I say detection range, that's how far out that you can actually pick up heat. Now, the identification range on a 256 is much, much closer than that 900 yards. Being honest, when it comes to actually identifying something with a 256, I would say about that 100, 150 yards is going to be about your max with properly identifying an animal. Now, like I said, you can see heat out plenty to, 900 yards is what the thermal can actually pick up. Now with the 384, that's a whole nother ball game. You're jumping up to about 1,900 yards with a 384 sensor. And with the 640, you're jumping up to about 2,600 yards with the increase in resolution on the 640. Now, when we're talking about image quality between the 256, 384, and 640, you will notice a pretty big drastic difference in your overall quality from every single one of these units because you're consecutively stepping up into a bigger and better sensor. So while we're comparing all three of these videos here, we're going to talk a little bit about the zoom performance on each one. Now your 256, like I said, it doesn't really have a lot of pixels. So when you are increasing your digital magnification for your zoom function, you're losing a ton of image quality every single time that you zoom in. Now with a 384, on the other hand, you are still maintaining a pretty decent image, even though you're zooming in and using that digital zoom. Now, where a 640 shines in this scenario is that you have the most amount of pixels available. So no matter if you're zooming in to a pretty far distance, it still has enough pixels to help maintain a crisp image. All right, so let's talk about 384s. Now, a 384 thermal is what I would generally refer to as the sweet spot for nearly every hunter out there. You're basically still getting that good budget price, but you're also taking a huge leap in performance versus a 256. Now, with a 384, you're getting a much farther detection range. You are also getting a much farther identification range so you can properly identify animals. Now, with a 384, your zoom is another thing that you will notice a pretty large difference in, is that when you zoom in, you can still get a pretty good and defined image, even though you're zooming in at a further distance. So a 384 really does bring out the best in all of those qualities. I would highly recommend one to, just about everybody out there, depending on your budget and your needs. You can pick up a lot more movement and overall body detail in just about every animal that you look at with a 384. You're not necessarily seeing that just solid white blob that you sometimes will with a 256 at further ranges. With a 384, you'll really be able to start telling what an animal is. Is it a coyote? Is it a bobcat, a fox? Sometimes with a 256, when you're starting to stretch out to further ranges, you lose that detail, so you're really not able to determine what that animal is. Now, one thing I really do like about a 384 is that the confidence that it gives you in the field. So with a 384, you're boosting your overall identification in the field, so you will feel much more confident about taking a shot that you know exactly what that animal is. Now let's talk about a little bit about real world experience with coyote hunting with a 256 and 384. Now just say you're out in the field and you have a coyote run in at 300 yards. With a 256, you're definitely gonna see the heat signature and you're gonna know that something is there. Now at that distance, you're really not gonna be able to determine what that animal is. You'll just basically see, like I said earlier, that white blob. Now with a 384, that little bit of extra resolution is definitely going to help you determine what that animal is. You'll be able to properly identify it at that range. Now a 640 is also, you'll be able to identify even further, but let's be honest here. The leap from a 256 to a 384 is what I would like to call the most noticeable difference in the thermal market, in my personal opinion. Yes, the 640 has a clear image and a further detection range and identification range. But if you give a guy a 256 and then give him a 384, he's gonna be like, wow, that's a leap right there. Now, whereas you go from a 384 to a 640, it's still gonna be, a leap forward where you're very pleased with your image quality overall, but it's not as huge as it was going from a 256 to a 384, in my opinion. Now, when we're talking about the 640s, if you're somebody like me and you want the best overall image quality that you can get and it is within your budget, go ahead and jump on a 640. You'll be very happy with it and it'll serve you for a long time and you'll be very satisfied. Now, at the end of the day, guys, all three of these thermal resolutions that we talked about will work for taking down predators. Now, no matter if you're, a weekend warrior or you're just hunting maybe a few times a year, a 256 will serve you just fine if you're hunting within, like I said, that 100, 150 yard range, or, you're taking out the occasional possums, raccoons, you'll still be happy with that unit. Now, the 384, in my personal opinion, is where you get the most value for performance. I think that is the best way to go. If it is within your budget, I would highly suggest just hopping straight into a 384. And then you guys that are, you just want the best of the best and you want to buy once, cry once, 640, all the way. So we appreciate you guys for watching this video, and I hope we answered some of your questions. And if you have any other additional questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. We will respond to it and answer anything that you want to know. Thanks, guys.